Hello. This will hopefully be the last time that I will pronounce the name of Wim Winters in a video. As fascinating as the subject may be, there is only so much that one can say about it. I have approached the subject from many different angles, and one might think I have squeezed it absolutely dry. But there is one last aspect of the question I knew I would have to address one day, which is of course that of the timing of work throughout the 18th and 19th century. That is of course an absolutely crucial piece of evidence. For more than anything, it does give us a general picture of what speeds were like back then. And let us face it, it is not good news for the double beat theory. Wim knows this very well. In fact, this is the reason why he will never ever engage in a live debate about his theory. At the moment, he has found three possible ways of dealing with this problem. On the one hand, we have the grotesque double second, which however ludicrous, cannot always save him, because some of the time duration we have actually tell us starting and finishing time of performances, which rules out any jiggery-pokery of that sort. His second weapon is similar to that of the Raoul Pugnot Chopin Nocturne recording. It is to ignore the mass of data against his idea and select the one or two that seems to be slightly in his favor and heavily focus on this, hoping that it will distract people's attention from the rest. His third weapon is the most commonly employed, the ostrich technique. Bury your head in the sand and hope it will pass. I would estimate that a good 70% of the comments from people questioning his theory that he doesn't reply to are questions regarding timing. Of course, similar in this to his attitude to historical recording, it is clear that he has never done any substantial research on the subject, which again, for someone who would not hesitate to label himself as a world expert on the subject, is something of a contradiction in terms. Essentially, one could say he has ignored the two most powerful research tools available to him. But the good news is that if he has ignored it, some people have not. What is about to follow is not the result of my own research. It has been done by the YouTube user called Fafnir, who used to appear regularly on Wim's comment section until, like so many of us, he was banned. The document I'm presenting here is quite a unique piece of research, of prime value for whoever has some interest into the subject of tempo research. The amount of data is phenomenal. We are talking of over 200 time durations by something like 15 of the most important composers, from Bach to César Franck. This is a devastating piece of counter-evidence, one which, at least in my mind, doesn't leave even the tiniest ray of hope to the double beat theory. I doubt this will ever happen, but I would actually very much like to get some feedback on this from a partisan of Wim. I have no doubt that these videos are watched by Wim and by some of his followers. So I will not now talk to them directly. If you are watching this, and if you are not able to offer a satisfactory explanation for all the timings I'm about to disclose, and all the ones available on the document I have linked in the description box of this video, then what is it you are trying to protect? And what is most important to you? Is it the truth, or is it not to be proven wrong? So on this note, I will begin. I will simply read you a few selected extracts, addressing composers that Wim certifies are thinking their speed in whole beat, or in the case of pre-metronome composers, in tempi that are radically different from our own. Wim is perfectly ready to argue that concerts in the past were going on for hours on end and that an opera could happily last 6 hours starting at 7 and finishing well after midnight. He did so again in a comment no later than last week. Well, let us look at the evidence. A letter by Leopold Mozart to Wolfgang from September 1778. Yesterday, I was for the first time this season the director of a great concert at court. At present, the music ends at around 8:15. Yesterday it began around 7 o'clock, and as I left, 8:15 struck. Thus, an hour and a quarter. Generally, only four pieces are performed: a symphony, an aria, a symphony or concerto, then an aria, and with this, addio. Just try to fit 4 pieces of that sort of nature in whole beat in an hour and a quarter, and then you will understand. Regarding Mozart's Don Giovanni, which Wim has claimed was performed at a significantly slower speed than it is today, taking something like 5 hours. All the sources say 2.5 hours. The curtain rises at 7 o'clock and falls at 9:30. Announcement in a Prague newspaper from October 30, 1787, conducted by Mozart. Opera playbill for a Prague production of September 23rd, 1788, 7 up to 9:30. Another opera playbill for a Leipzig production, 1788, 5:30 to 8 o'clock. Another source says the uncut version of the opera takes 2 hours and 45 minutes. This is bang on with modern recordings of this piece, as can be seen on YouTube. The next source is interesting as it talks not only about Beethoven, but also about Liszt, whom Wim maintains was a whole beat kind of musician. As a student of Czerny, Liszt playing Beethoven, we should give him some credit. Beethoven Trio Opus 97, The Archduke. 45 minutes in the performance by Liszt, Chrétien Urban, and Alexandre Bata from an 1837 concert. Beethoven 8th Symphony. 25 minutes from a letter by Liszt to Richard Paul. Liszt Venezia in Napoli, according to Liszt himself, 17 minutes. Most of the performances on YouTube are between 16 and 18 minutes. Now, Alcan, who is heavily promoted by Wolfgang Weller and endorsed by Wim as a double beater, left us some fascinating timing for works by him and by others. Let us look at 2 pieces by him that appeared on Wim's channel. So we are talking of the Marche de Concert and the Marche Triomphale. He respectively timed them at 9 minutes and 30 seconds and 5 minutes. Wolfgang Weller plays them in 19 minutes 49 and 9 minutes 42. So we can all congratulate him warmly for being able to play them exactly twice as slow as Alcan did. Alcan also talks about Chopin. He takes between 6 and 7 minutes to play his arrangement of the second movement of the first concerto. Do you want to have a guess on how long it takes Wolfgang Weller, against endorsed by Wim Winters? 14 minutes. Is it really possible to take seriously somebody who does research in tempo, who is shown these numbers, and doesn't pause and think for a minute, or at the very least acknowledges a problem? The list is long, and I could continue, but really the document is attached for anyone to see, and I'm simply here giving you small snippets. I say it again. The document is vast, and it shows repeatedly and conclusively that historical tempi are actually eerily close to modern ones. If anything, they were sometimes a little faster, which is in line with the fact that they write metronome markings which tend to be on the fast side of what we are expecting. So this is the hard truth. People in the past played pretty much like we do. How disappointing. But also how good to know that we haven't somehow wandered so far that we have totally distorted their intention, at least as far as speeds are concerned. It seems simply that with heavier, noisier instruments, bigger holes, and also a certain sacralization of the music, we have tended to slightly slow down. Not enormously, tiny bit. Which is what metronome marking and musicologists have been saying to us for a long time now. So case seems to be closed, really. However, double beat theory is very much like a hydra with 100 heads. And when you destroy one, just another pops up. At the time at which I'm writing this, Wim just released another of his "this is the ultimate proof that I was right all along" kind of videos. This time it focuses on an entry in the Dutch Music Encyclopedia of 1932. At first glance, it would seem that he may have a point with this. As Wim always falls into confirmation bias, it is tempting to think that he got that one wrong as well as everything else. But I haven't so far been able to disprove him. I haven't seen the book, I have no Dutch. So we can give him the benefit of the doubt and say, yes, he may have stumbled onto something interesting there. This is, by the way, an attitude that he never has, which is why it is terribly important not to fall into the same trap. Otherwise, we are no better than him. And as much likely to be wrong as he is. If this is correct, which remains to be proven, but is not impossible at first glance, it shows that, at the minimum, a team of Dutch people seem to agree with him. It is interesting, and he marks a point. I have one strong reservation, however, which is simply the fact that this encyclopedia was written in 1932. Even assuming for a minute that there was, in the past, something like a different use of the metronome, would a book written at a time when this was clearly something long gone write about it as if it was not only still in use, but still the right way to use, not even bothering to mention modern use? It is this which makes this source suspicious. Its unambiguity could have been interesting a century earlier, but at the time of writing, it actually plays against it, and it is therefore more reasonable to regard it as a probable misprint. Now, you might also be interested to know that at the end of the document I've been referring, Fafner has also compiled a great number of descriptions of metronomes and its use from various times since its invention. Now, we have, on the one hand, one source from 1932 in the Dutch Encyclopedia, which seems to talk about double beat. We have, on the other hand, multiple sources from various important composers and musicians throughout the 19th century, which are all unanimously and clearly single beat. Is there a good reason to ignore all these and concentrate on the other one? There is a saying which says that an extraordinary affirmation requires extraordinary evidence. Is this extraordinary evidence? The future remains open, and if Wim is able to come up with more sources of the kind, or better, we will have to start taking him more seriously, though I personally cannot see how the hard fact of timing can be overturned. In the meantime, it doesn't seem wise to give double beat any credit. The evidence against it is overwhelming, unambiguous, and more importantly, testable. double beat hypothesis is untestable. There is no audio document of a composer performing his music in double beat. There are no sources mentioning it apart from this one publication in a Dutch encyclopedia. There is, more importantly, no source mentioning a change from double to single beat, which would be an amazing thing if ever it was true, that there would be no source ever mentioning a change. And there is not a single one, and Wim knows this perfectly well. The hypothesis of the double second, even if we were to take it seriously, simply makes timing unverifiable, for it never specifies which system of measurement is being used. When a scientific hypothesis is unfalsifiable, we talk about pseudoscience. Wim gives us no tools to falsify his theory. There is nothing in his eyes that would enable us to prove him wrong. As such, his hypotheses belong to the realm of pseudo-musicology and would be unworthy of the attention which I and many people have been giving it, only for the fact that he's very good at promoting it. Thanks for watching.